Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's talk a little bit about the game of the Republic and political strategy. Those of you who've been following me on a lot of my other stuff, I've talked about this board game that I've been kind of working out in my head that applies a lot of the principles of Machiavellianism to a game, basically a tabletop game. And so when I think about politics, it's a lot more applications of that game theory derived from Machiavelli. So when I talk about election strategies, which is what I'm talking about in this video, populism versus coalition building, this is not necessarily legislative strategy. Sometimes with the parliament, you have a coalition which will legislate as sort of one body. This is more how you capture seats, or in the case of the American Republic, how you, for example, capture the presidency. So what are the two different strategies? Populism used to be the most popular, particularly for the President of the United States, and that has been replaced by coalition building as the populace of the United States has become more diverse. Populism is all about picking the most popular platform. What's the most popular stance? What set of stances can you cobble together that will just be the most popular one, get the most people to like you? And we used to have this thing, back in the 90s where the presidential candidates would do what's called the race to the center, where they would really just start hammering on a lot of centrist issues and proclaiming their centristness and kind of distancing themselves from more partisan ideas, which may have gotten them a nomination, but which generally is felt like it's not going to win them an election. The people who are on the fringes are not going to not vote for you. It's really about capturing those center voters that may go either way. So populism is about having the most popular platform. Despite it being decried by one party right now, the Democrat Party in the United States, it was always the dominant strategy for presidential elections going way, way back. And that was because the American populace was largely a culturally and racially homogenous group. Yes, there was always a substantial portion of African Americans, and they've been able to vote for a long time now, but the white majority had always been the controller of how politics were going to swing. That started to change in the 2000s, and I think by about 2008, with Barack Obama, you have the Democrats fully embracing the coalition strategy. So the coalition strategy is, rather than trying to find a really popular medium, a really popular set of policies that you're going to run on, you just try to capture as many unified groups as you can, whether they're an ethnic group or it's like a single issue voter block. Like there's a large number of women who will vote purely based on abortion rights, and there's a large number of men who will vote purely based on gun rights, as an example. So the gun rights one ends up in the Republican camp. It's really their only single issue voter group that I can think of are gun rights advocates, whereas Democrats will collect a bunch of them, and that was really the whole point of Barack Obama, who was a politician without any real legislative or executive experience, who gained a whole lot of success simply because he was the right person at the right time at the right place, and most importantly, he was the right race. By having a black candidate, you are able to automatically collect the black vote. At least that's their reasoning, as well as virtually any other ethnic group that is not white. So the entire platform, and this has been a lot of their political messaging for like 20 years now, is white people bad. I remember when I was at the university, this was the nonstop propaganda was like white people bad, like white heteronormative culture is bad. So that is to create a coalition of people who aren't white. Even though all of these groups may be very disparate, they may have very competing ideas about what is good for the country, and indeed extremely diverse and interests that are actually in conflict with one another. A really good example is, say, the Hispanic vote versus the black vote. And you started to hear this a lot in political discussion. Get the black vote, get the Hispanic vote, get the woman vote, get the Indian vote, get the Muslim vote, right? Like all of these little groups, that's what the Democrats have done, and they were pretty successful with it. Obviously, they were able to control Congress multiple times, and they were able to win the presidency 3 times using that coalition strategy. The problem with the coalition strategy, as you might guess from a I guess, a Republican standpoint is that you're not really pursuing policies, but it's the explanation for how can the president and Congress have the lowest approval ratings in some historical bracket, right? Lowest approval ratings ever, and how can they continue to win elections? It's because being super popular is not how you win the election. You win the election by assembling groups of ethnicities or single issue voter groups that will vote for you no matter how bad you are as a legislator. No matter how bad you do in office, they won't not vote for you because you're representing some special interest of theirs. And that's all that really matters to them. Okay, so there's a group that's like the gay rights group. Well, they're always going to vote for the people who are like pro gay rights. They're going to vote for Democrats. And yeah, all the economic stuff they could disagree with. It could be completely helter-skelter. They could disagree with every single national security policy that the Democrats have. They will never stop voting for the Democrat Party because their singular issue is bound up in that coalition strategy. And it's the same with different ethnicities. It's why you see this weird kind of chaos at universities the last year or so, where you have a group of Muslim students are protesting Israel and, generally being kind of anti-Jewish, I would say. And then what do you do when there's a really strong Jewish component in the universities? And this applies to the Democrat Party as well, right? There's a lot of prominent Jews in the Democrat Party. It's generally captured the Jewish vote for a long time. And then you have the Muslim vote, and these two people are at pretty strong odds as an extension of their ethnic conflict in the area of Israel and Palestine. So how can they both vote Democrat? And the answer is because the Democrat Party represents their singular interests separately, even though they're in conflict. African Americans and Hispanic vote is actually in conflict because if you cared about, say, the unemployment rate of African Americans, you would want to limit immigration. But if you are the Democrat Party, you don't want to limit immigration because that's how you're going to gain the Hispanic vote. Not only that, but if you capture the Hispanic vote through immigration, you can simply make that vote bigger by increasing the number of voters that come in and vote in that block. So it's about putting voting blocks together. So you may wonder, well, how did Donald Trump win possibly 2 elections? Well, the answer was he coalition built, and he was a populist, of course, and he talked about popular things. But people confuse that with him merely building a coalition of white voters in a very specific geographical area. So rather than building a coalition of little ethnic groups that all have a singular issue, he built a coalition of localities, a coalition of states. So he just played the Electoral College, and that was the way that he was able to win in 2016. If it had been an election with like a general popular vote, he probably would have run that campaign differently. I think he's smart enough that he would have realized that we're going to have to do a different strategy in order to collect enough votes just on the popular scale in order to win. So he played a coalition game, and our Electoral College allows you to play a coalition game as opposed to simply worrying about a populist strategy for the presidential election. How does this apply to local elections? It can, depending on the demographics of that locality, right? If the locality is really heavy in one ethnic group, you can't really win that area without appealing to that ethnic group on some level. It's going to be mandatory. So it's about who is going to be the most populist within the confines of certain ethnic groups, who's going to capture that ethnic group. And you will find that ethnic groups do tend to vote in blocks, right? Like a large percentage of them will vote for one party over the other party. And the only race that doesn't really do that is white Americans, because they've been in the majority for so long. A lot of them are still thinking in terms of, the Democrats have my policy. Like, I've always voted Democrat, therefore I'll continue to vote Democrat. Or they're in one of these little single issue camps. So to capture a percentage of the white vote, you have the LGBTQ vote. You have you maybe have the women's rights thing. You have a feminist block. You have people that just kind of vote based on these little these little groupings, right? These little identity groupings that they happen to have. So that's the difference between the two strategies and how I've seen them develop over the last 20 years. I've talked about it a little bit on my blog, and I'm going to be really interested to see what happens this year with the election and how things go from there, and where the various strategies for propaganda and for policy and all the craziness that's going to happen this year, and how that's going to appeal to those two strategies. And I have some other ideas coming down the pipe for that will explain some of the things I've seen with the media over the last couple of weeks and months. So anyway, just thought I'd share those ideas with you. Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. Don't forget, you can join my Patreon, and you can be a patron on my Substack as well and get access to the copies of the live writes I do every week, and you get a free book every month through Patreon. So that will be linked down below in the description box. So it rotates what book is available every month. So check that out, and I will see you all next time. Have a great day.